I'm sure you're familiar with the sentiment of separating the art from the artist. It's a coping method used by billions of people who want others to consume their respective pieces of media with no strings attached to its creator that is usually unhinged or bonkers in the brains. It's a pretty genius strategy, and to be honest, I use it all the time. Like, look at Kanye West. He has some pretty weird takes on the world.
I see good things about Hitler also.
But like, he made Graduation album. That was pretty cool. Anyway, moving over to the medium of Japanese animation, the anime version of separating the art from the artist is separating the goon from the good. Like, for example, in One Piece, it's a pretty cool show and all, but oh, look at Nami's tits. They've grown tenfold since the story first started getting told. It's weird and disgusting and kind of cringe, to be honest. And oh, would it be nice for me to recommend this pirate manga to a friend or foe, but Nami's tits are just so present. If I recommend this show, they'll think I'm a gooner guy. So in order to recommend One Piece to other people, we of course gotta separate the goon from the good. And this is possible because, say it with me, Nami's tits aren't necessary to the plot. And boom, just like that, we have a pretty mid show. Though, I won't be labeled as a weirdo gooner when recommending this to a peer or friend of mine. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this sentiment of separating the goon from the good is because I've seen this argument be thrown around in defense of the show Mushoku Tensei.
The show is so good, if you just separate the goon from the good, the actual meat and bones of the show is incredible. You just have to ignore all the dumb gooner aspects.
And I just want to make it clear that I'm very aware of this way of consuming media. It's just, it can't really be applied to Mushoku Tensei because in a way the goon and the good, they're intertwined into one. And you can't ignore the gooner aspects of this show because if you do that, you're gonna be missing out on major plot points in the story. And this scene in particular, episode 6 in season 2, fully displayed this idea that the goon and the good are completely intertwined into one. Because I'm telling you right now, this scene is probably the most disgusting and appalling thing that I've ever seen in the medium of animation. And the reason why it's so disgusting and appalling is not because the story's bad, and it's not because of a completely normal reason that can be seen across all media. The reason why it's so completely disgusting is because of the gooner aspects that make this show completely unwatchable. Anyway, here's the scene. And for context, for the scene, Gooner MC is trying to buy a slave in order for the slave to do repetitive tasks for a low price because he does not have much time on his hands.
ドワーフ6歳のジョージだ。親の借金で一家揃って奴隷落ちだとさ。健康状態はちょっと悪いな。栄養失調か。人間語は喋れない。6歳じゃ当然だが文字も読めない。
Alright, so let's just take in what we just heard right here. She's paying off their debt by selling her very being. She's starving to death and she can't read and she's 6 years old. Very interesting. Now let's do a little game. Let's predict, how is Gooner MC gonna react after hearing all of this terrible information? Does he show a look of disgust in the face of this horrible and unjust society? Does he suggest that this idea of purchasing slaves is a bad idea in the first place and that he's gonna leave because the guilt is crawling on the back of his spine? And while he doesn't have the power himself to stop this corrupt system, he simply doesn't have it in him to bear the sins of taking on the responsibility of rescuing this child. Does he do something like that, or does he not? I don't know. Let's just play the scene. Alright, so what does this scene imply? It implies that he's completely chill with the system of slavery that is in place. He's also chill and fine with the idea of purchasing another human being. Because either what? Play the next part.
おい出ろ。
Rudeus, Effusius, Masax boy, be okay.
Alright, this is something, you know. He's trying to find common ground with his individual that he views as subhuman, which is interesting. This is going in a great direction. Okay, and this is also pretty good. Empathy, feeling what others feel. She looks into the eyes of the child who has been sold into slavery, and he begins to understand the feelings that she's feeling, which is honestly very good. Good job, buddy. You can recognize how she feels. The next best step is to help the child. Yep, help the child because she's in a terrible state. Let's see what he does next. Does he do it?
懐かしい目だ。俺もこんな目をしていた。
Gooner MC, he was bullied in high school, and because he was bullied, he stayed home all day and gooned to hentai in his room all day long. That is his life. Now this child sold into slavery. She's starving to death. Can't read at 6. She has no hope. What this show is doing is putting the gooner MC's pain and suffering on the same level as this child, which is just weird. It's pretty weird. Like, I don't know about you, but I think gooner MC did not go through as much torment as little child slave here. But let's continue. Maybe this is a misconception that I'm having. Maybe he's just
現状を絶望し、何もかもを投げ出したいと思っていた。言おうか。押してばい。
Gooner MC has the ability to purchase this child and just rescue the slave child, alright? He has that's in his arsenal. He could do that. But instead of offering to do such a righteous thing, he instead puts her suffering on the same level as his, and then he jumps to this pretty substantial conclusion. The conclusion that this person wants to die, which is a very crazy thing to do. Instead of offering to help the child first, what he instead decides to do is to offer to kill her. Let's continue though, maybe we have the wrong idea. Yeah, he's doubled down. You can bring salvation to her life. All you have to do is she's a child. She's just a child. You just buy her and just save her, man. Oh my gosh.
そりゃ、ここで彼女を購入し、仕事を与えてやることはできる。けど、それが救いではないことを。
I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. Do I have to? I don't think I have to this time. It's not against her will if you ask her to do the job and she accepts the job, which is honestly much better than, you know, staying in prison and being a slave this whole time. You could extend a warm and welcome hand out to this child slave. But no, offer to kill the child. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Genuinely, what is the point of the scene? It just makes him look dumb, first of all, for trying to relate to her. She's just like me for real. And then it just makes him look dumber because the child doesn't relate to him at all. And the child wants to live and the child doesn't want to kill herself. And then what happens after this? Does he admit that he was like extremely dumb for thinking this? Like, oh shoot, this child, she went through a lot more than me. And it's also a child. And I was dumb for, you know, trying to compare myself to this child who went through, you know, terrible things. And I'm also dumb for assuming that she wanted to die because I'm weak-willed, but she's not weak-willed. She's normal. Could have like accepted that he was wrong in that scenario. But let's just see what he does after. Let's just see. Yeah, he continues, he doubles down, like he was just blatantly wrong right in his face. She just said that, and then he just continues.
Oh yeah, dude, no, I feel this way too, because like, it's not that I want to live, it's just that I don't want to die.
He tries to relate with child slave. He thinks his suffering's on the same level as this child slave. His willpower is also at rock bottom. He wanted to kill himself while he was alive in the past life. That's what he wanted. And then when he made this false assumption that he's on the same level as this child who suffered so much, and when he assumed that this child wanted to just kill herself, instead of offering first to help her, which is very much in his capacity, he instead decides to kill her. But we then learn that the child doesn't have a weak will. We learn that the child doesn't want to kill herself. The child wants to live. And then he continues to double down. He doesn't think that his false assumption was wrong or anything. None of that. He actually thinks he was in the right the whole time. And also this whole entire concept as a whole. This man was living in the 21st century when things were progressive and things weren't weren't awful in the world, okay? We moved forward as a society. We stopped doing things like slavery and murder because it's bad and it's terrible for our species. We dropped that years ago. It's a horrible practice. We would never do slavery ever again. The world's a better place. But what does this guy do? At the slightest instance of inconvenience, he can't make a puppet doll out of clay. What does he do? He goes to buy a slave. And when he goes to buy a slave, he freaking contemplates killing the slave because he has a false sense of correlation between his suffering and the slave, and he tries to just kill the slave instead of offering to help the slave, which is very much in his capacity. Anyway, Mushoku Tensei it's terrible. You can't separate the good from the goon, because the goon and the good, they're severely intertwined. You can't separate it like you can with any other show. Like freaking Too Many Losing Heroines, that one gooner scene, you could just skip that. But you can't skip this scene. This is a scene that is relevant to the plot, because him hiring a slave is relevant to the plot, and his dumb freaking virtue signaling of himself. Oh yeah, I suffered too. I want to kill you because you want to kill yourself, but you don't want to fucking kill yourself. Like, I gave season 1 was like 8 out of 10. I'd say it was pretty good. I'm gonna lower it now. I'm a little angry, but season 2, I give it like a 3 out of 10 because this scene is so bad. It's so trash, man. Oof. Hopefully that turned out well.